welcome to the Enchanted Circle podcast, and welcome to our 14th episode. We are a new podcast of three best friends that have known each other since high school that love fantasy books. So here we are doing what we love most, which is obviously reading, theorizing, and having a great time together. From meeting in high school to reading Harry Potter, Twilight, and the Mortal Instruments series to reading Fourth Wing and ACOTAR, we are all back to rereading Fourth Wing and Iron Flame to prepare for the upcoming release of Onyx Storm. So we created this podcast for the recap and to theorize together. I'm Carolina. Welcome to episode 14, and we are covering chapters 48 through 55 of Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I hope everyone enjoyed all the holidays, and Happy New Year again, everyone. Wow, I am so grateful for 2024. My son was born in 2024, and we started our podcast in 2024. So blessed indeed. Can't wait to see what 2025 has in store for us. And ladies, when do you think we should share what book we plan to cover and do a deep dive on after Onyx Storm?
Soon. Real soon.
Keep a lookout for our posts. We hope you enjoy our podcast and have fun. Also, Bella is down again, everyone.
Poor Bella.
I know.
She's going through it.
I was just telling Steph before we started this episode that I FaceTimed Bella yesterday. She doesn't have any voice. And I'm like, Bella, you do not have to do this tomorrow. She's like, no, I want to come on. She misses you guys, by the way. She's like, oh my gosh, I want to come on. I'm like, Bella, you do not have a voice to talk.
I need Bella Spice in our life again. Bella.
Oh my God.
Take some emergency so you can come back.
Yeah, she was even like, no, I'm going to let you know tomorrow. I'm going to drink a bunch of tea, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, girl, no, you're done. Like, don't worry.
Then she sent us like a voice note like an hour ago, and she does not sound very well. She needs to rest her voice and rest her body so she can feel 100% and she can join us.
Yes. So our girl is resting, and we got this, right, Steph?
We got this because we got the club going up on a Tuesday.
Hey.
Guys, we are 14 days from Onyx Storm. Honestly, I cannot contain the excitement to know we get to be reunited in this world. Although I am definitely going to need a happy lamp for the major depression I'm going to have when I complete reading it.
100%. I think we need to set up whatever we're reading right after just to get us happy. Like a rom-com, simple romance, like nice, like funny.
I'm going to have the worst book hangover ever.
I think we all are for sure.
100%. The good thing, though, is we get to break it down here just for you guys and deep dive into all the little details I definitely missed when I was gobbling it up. Also, did you guys realize it releases on a Tuesday? It is meant to be.
100%. It's
Rebecca is with Enchanted Circle podcast.
So we just have to mention content warnings. There will be spoilers for the entire book of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, including all of Xaden's POV chapters. If you have not read any of these books and his new POVs, please come back once you do. We wouldn't want to spoil anything for you. We may mention interviews or posts from Rebecca Yarros, so spoilers with that. Fair warning, we will be quoting quite a bit of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros for this recap. This podcast is rated R due to the topics we discuss about this adult book. Also, we tend to curse a lot, so please be aware of children listening. Let's get into it.
Chapter 48. Quote, as a result of the Treaty of Arisha, the power to represent the province of Tyrrendor in the King's Cenarium has been hereby transferred from House of Ryerson to House of Llewellyn. End quote. Public Notice 628.86, transcribed by Sorella Neilwart. And who is our other Neilwart? Jasenia. So is that her mom? Is that her family member? Who is that?
I didn't even catch that. Damn.
The brain is braining sometimes.
Wow.
Okay. Violet is still reeling from Kat's mental attack as well as the physical one, even though the distance is definitely helping. Xaden is calm, cool, and collected as he looks over Violet's injuries, but most of her injuries seem to be mental. Xaden tells Violet to sit on the big chair on the dais, and Violet can hardly believe he is asking her to sit, while she recalls how easily she lost her shit in front of everyone. With Violet's high emotions, Xaden tells her, quote, nothing I could say right now is going to erase her words from your head. So sit, Violence. We'll do the talking afterward. End quote. Yeah, they will.
I was just about to say, yeah, they will.
Violet sits and tells him how Kat merely wants Xaden for his name and what it comes with. But Xaden already knows that and emphasizes how he knows that it is the last thing Violet wants from him. Xaden drops to his knees in front of Violet. Lord, that vision will give me life forever.
I think I just faint.
Violet asks what he is doing, and he just gives her a wicked smile that instantly turns her anger to lust. He starts removing her boots and socks, and she can't believe that they're doing it in that room. She worries someone will walk in, but he just flicks his wrist and locks the door while telling her, quote, my house, remember? They're all my rooms. My house, my chair, my woman, and quote. And there goes her pants, y'all. Her pants are gone.
That's it. It's over.
He manhandled her body. Jesus Christ, Lord, save my dirty visions. And gives her the most insane, devastating kiss. Quote, the kiss spins out of control in less than a heartbeat, turning wild and urgent, tasting of that sweet madness that only exists between us. End quote. Now, guys, I am still believing that in this world, somehow, some way, humans have fated mates, okay? I want to believe they're fated mates because their vibe is just given fated mates. I believe it with my heart.
And who doesn't love a good fated mate story? Like, come on.
Come on. We need that. Especially now that Xaden is Venom. Like, the fact that they're fated mates and he becomes the thing that she's trying to save the world from, that they both were trying to save the world from. I just would love to see how that bond goes through that. Xaden pulls her legs apart and he eats his breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I love that. I love how you did that.
As, quote, his mouth sets me on fire as he drags his tongue from my slick entrance to my clit, end quote. He continues as he tells her, his mouth against her skin, quote, this is what I fantasize about when I'm away from you. Your taste, your scent, the little gasps you take right before you come. End quote. And he just focuses on the task on hand. And Vi has to bite her fist to muffle her cries because damn, you know it's good. Power rises in Violet, heating her already too hot skin. Without stopping, Xaden merely grabs a conduit and hands it to Violet, who obviously is losing control. Again, not that I blame her because, same. He continues on having a feast fit for a king.
The puns are just, I can't.
And he brings Violet to the edge with the most insane vision. Quote, gods, the sight of him kneeling, fully clothed, the leather of his flight jacket against my bare thighs pushes me all the way to the edge and burns itself into my memory. End quote. It brings her to a climax, except there is no lightning striking thanks to the conduit. Her orgasm doesn't stop because he isn't stopping. He actually grabs her hips and tilts her upward, still stroking her while he tells her, quote, look at how beautiful you are, Violet, coming for me on Tyrandor's throne. End quote. Fucking hot hell, y'all. I'm dead. He puts her leg up on the armrest and goes back in. And Violet's like, quote, oh gods, I'm going to die right here, right now. End quote. He demands another orgasm as Violet swears she can't. Then something unexplainable happens. Quote, shimmering onyx wraps around my mind and everything intensifies. End quote. Xaden's desire is flooding their bond. And boy, does he want to fuck the shit out of her right now. Violet screams his name, and when she comes to, pun intended, Xaden backs away and grips the assembly table with white knuckles. He intends to give without receiving, and that is uncomfortable for Vi. He uses his shadows to get Violet to dress herself, and she does. Finally, she asks why, and he responds that he needs her to know that she is more than a convenient fuck. And she voices that she is uncomfortable with it, and he responds, quote, I don't like thinking you're not the center of my fucking world, end quote. Sweet baby Jesus, how perfect can you be? This is why the standards don't exist. They are fictional. They begin to talk about what happened before the infamous throne scene. Xaden tells Vi that he really believes she would have killed Kat, and Vi responds that she would have, but both Xaden and Violet acknowledge that she would have regretted it. But this brings him to the topic of conversation. Violet has been too afraid to ask the questions that matter because she is afraid of the answers. He tells Vi that Kat and him were betrothed, a clause from the alliance that kicked in when Kat turned 20. He gave it a try for 3/4 of the year and they were not compatible. I wonder what it was. Xaden is someone who's willing to sacrifice so much. What could have turned him off so bad and make him come to the conclusion that it was not worth it in the end? He tells Vi that their relationship was just physical, in similarity to how they began last year. All the while, he was already in love with Violet. A perfect man does not exist. He is in fourth wing. But the point is, Kat made Violet so crazy with jealousy, she reacted irrationally. All the while, Xaden tells Vi that Kat only amplifies what is already there. Though Vi shares how Xaden would have reacted the same had one of her exes spoken about how she tastes, which was some fucked up shit. Vi continues on to tell him what other emotions she amplified. Quote, anger, inferiority.
You're doing great, sweetie.
This is the ESL podcast. One more time for y'all. Quote, anger, inferiority, insecurity, end quote. And Xaden goes one by one and debunks them. And we find out that Xaden technically is the king or more formal Duke of Tyrrendor, but that he doesn't want to rule. And Llewellyn is actually on their side and doing a good job governing. Xaden continues on to tell Violet that they need to do better at communicating, something that Violet was very good at last year before her world was turned upside down. But Xaden says he will do whatever necessary to form a good and stable relationship because he doesn't want to lose her again. Swoon. Violet continues on spiraling, feeling inadequate to Kat, and Xaden continues to talk her through it as Violet finally admits that she hasn't been in control since Resin, which, guys, this has been like 6 months of her just feeling completely unlike herself. Xaden apologizes for turning her world upside down and for the part he played, but he tells her she needs to want to help herself. Moreover, he tells us that one of the daggers is ruined to protect Vi from Kat's power. They finally close the discussion, Violet feeling more settled. Honestly, I am impressed by Xaden's maturity here. I can get how everyone gets annoyed with Vi, but she's just a girl, and it's astounding because 90% of the women I know are sometimes just as irrational when it comes to love. You ain't all that much better than her. And she's like 20. Because guys, I do hair. I've been a hairstylist for 10 years. And let me tell you, those 50-year-olds, their quest for love turns them into some crazy ass women. So the hate is unwarranted, okay?
You've heard some good stories on that chair.
I've heard some crazy ass stories. So don't blame my poor girl Vi. She's 20. All right. Do you know what I was doing when I was 20? Irrational shit. Being crazy. All right. Anyways, don't come for my girl.
First of all, we back you up, Violet. We love
all
Violet.
day, every day.
Violet is our bestie podcast.
Yeah. The 2-part ways as Violet goes to a briefing and Vi to history class, which she is not good at since her history is based on lies. And Xaden tells her to, quote, come to bed early tonight, quote. Yes, me too. I'm coming for you. What kind of like signet I want? I want a signet where I can just jump into the fictional worlds that a lot of these authors come up with, because I would love to jump into like
that would be amazing.
Prithian or
Terrasen.
Prithian,
Oh, I'd love
Terrasen.
to party with Aelin.
Aelin's a party girl.
Chapter 49, quote, flyers and riders are held equal in every regard with the exception of wing structure. Riders will maintain their wings, sections, and squads, as well as retain their commands. Every drift will be absorbed by a squad current executive officer for unit cohesiveness and efficiency. End quote. Article 2, Section 1, the Orisha Accord. Immediately we find out that our Iron Squad is paired with Cat's Drift. Violet offers their patch to Cat and says, quote, welcome to 2nd Squad, Flame Section, 4th Wing, also known as the Iron Squad, end quote. Damn right. Violet doesn't keep her eyes off Cat and tells her to take the patch. Cat, confused, is like, what do we do with it? Violet tells her they are supposed to wear it for rank and that patches are earned, not given. Violet makes a comment on how Xaden hates patches, and Cat says, quote, I knew that. I've known him for years, end quote. Okay. Let's go get her, guys. I'm done with her. Remember, Violet has her daggers Xaden gave her to protect her from Cat's powers, and Cat's eyes widen as if she knows she can't fuck with Violet. Cat says to her, quote, being in the same squad doesn't change the fact that it's still my crown, end quote. Ooh, Violet, burn her to a crisp. Ree tells Violet, quote, let's feed her to Sigale, end quote. True. Where is Sigale? I would love to hear her commentary right now. And Kat also says, quote, it's going to be fun making your life as miserable as you've made mine, end quote. First of all, how did Violet make your life miserable? Please elaborate. Violet tells her to please go ahead and make her life miserable, but one more thing, quote, that trick you mentioned, with the fingers, thanks, end quote. Mic drop. Hold on, let me drop it. That's
I got no words because my girl showed up. She showed up with the big guns.
I know. When I first read this, I had to close the book. I was like, I closed it and I was like, Violet is a boss ass bee. That's why we're besties. Violet is one of our besties. Imogen laughs uncontrollably. Actually, that's something I would have done too. I probably would have laughed uncontrollably with Imogen. And so does Ree. And oh my God, Violet, you're a legend. Ree asks a valid point. What if Cat makes her hate you? But Violet clarifies that she can't. Riddock says something interesting here, quote, or make you instantly horny for some random flyer, and then you're not the only one in that bed when Xaden rotates back, end quote. What if this actually happens though, and it's Auric? That would be very juicy for the story. Love you, Xaden. Sorry, just kidding.
The feelings may be there, and she amplifies them. So
that would be so juicy.
Looking at Auric, so
she does always know when he's in the room.
I love Xaden, and I don't want anyone to think or believe we are not like Xaden is the top.
Number one. He's number one.
I just feel like we are going to see an Onyx Storm, him separate himself so much for Violet. And I don't think Violet's going to hook up with Auric, but I think they will have like a closer friendship where Xaden may interpret it like they're flirty or whatever and like feel threatened by it because he's not with her at the moment. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And I could see Auric like helping her out in doing whatever he can. Violet clarifies again that Cat can only amplify emotions you already have. Like you said, I feel like that's like an ominous thing now. Auric is definitely coming into this with Cat's powers. Sawyer says, quote, we could kill her, end quote. Her meaning Cat. Poor thing. Violet has Cat's back, saying they can't kill her because she's their squad mate. Violet is the only reasonable one right now, and it's hilarious. I love how her whole squad has her back, including us at the Enchanted Circle podcast. Sawyer asks her if she's sure, and Andarna even chimes in saying, quote, good idea. I could use a snack, end quote. Okay. But Taryn butts in and says, quote, we do not eat our allies, end quote. Well. And Darna could hang out with us too. She's one of our besties. They walk into the library and Violet is about to review the books Takaris gave them. Sawyer grins as he sees Jasenia and goes to say hello to her, and he even learned how to sign. Guys, how adorable is Sawyer? Or he could be, as you said, the theory last episode.
My crazy girl theory, my mad woman theory. Guys, I have mad woman theories. Don't listen to me, but sometimes just keep it back there because, I don't know. It's Rebecca Yarros' world, and she comes out with some crazy ass shit.
The text Violet has is all in Crovelish, and Ree asks if Jasenia knows Crovelish, and Violet says nope, but guess who does? Dane, the not so shit stain. Dane and Violet are working together here. They also have a moment and remember that they were friends before all this and how much Basgiath has changed them drastically in just 1 year. Well, for Dane being 2 years. Dane apologizes to Violet for everything. Violet confronts him on him stealing her memories and Dane says he's sorry. And he definitely didn't mean it at first. He swore that Xaden wanted revenge. Violet, defending her man, says no, he doesn't. And Dane says, quote, I know that now. I fucked up and trusted my dad when I should have trusted your judgment. And there's nothing I can say or do that's going to bring Liam back, end quote. Okay, Dane, you're not so shit stained right now. They have a heart to heart and Dane starts imbuing the stone, which he believes it will take about a month. And Dane starts with, quote, about Ryerson, and Violet again, ready to defend her man, says, be very careful with your words. Dane asks her if she's in love with him, and he continues to say, quote, because Garrick and I heard the end of what he said in that interrogation chamber, and trust me, I might be in love with him after that declaration. But are you? Really and truly? End quote. I love that he said this here. Dane, we are all in love with him, by the way. You're late to the party. And Violet says yes, and Dane is like, okay, and that he trusts him too, as long as Violet does. Chapter 50, quote, mastery of one's signet does not occur at Basgiath, nor in the years directly after. No rider alive truly believes they've reached the limitation of their power. The dead ones may feel differently, end quote. Major Offender's Guide to the Rider's Quadrant. Violet is training with Felix and he's noticing how much better she is at aiming. Violet has been spending a lot of time with Dane translating the journal. Felix takes out a metal glass orb and orders Violet to strike it. Violet is like, dude, I'll kill you. And he's like, only if you could aim. Ouch. I have to quote this entire thing, Felix says. Quote, it's about energy fields. It's quite similar to magic that way, and you are the greatest energy field of all. Summon your power, but instead of letting the conduit have it all, cut it off yourself, end quote. And of course, Violet does it. She is extraordinary. Felix tells her not to be afraid of her power. Violet clarifies that she's not. Taryn tells her she shouldn't be afraid either, and, quote, I chose you, and dragons make no mistakes, end quote. Violet responds, quote, what's it like to go through life so self-assured? And he says, quote, it's ... life. And
Darren is he's something else.
I love him. Like, I love the confidence.
The sass is out of control.
For real. She continues to train with Felix, Violet finally getting some type of control until she almost hits Felix's red sword tail. Taryn feels prideful when she does it, lol. I can imagine him sitting with his chest high, just admiring Violet. What I love about Felix is that he genuinely wants her to learn and get better at controlling her power. Carr was such a prick for not teaching her the right way. As the lesson was over, Felix tells Violet for her and Xaden to meet the assembly at 5 p.m. Violet realizes Xaden is home early, but she feels that he's frustrated via the bond. Violet goes to the second floor landing in Ryerson House and she immediately sees Garrick and Bodhi standing there. She sees why Xaden is so upset because Garrick and Bodhi had a giant contusion and their right arm is splinted from the elbow down. They got hurt. Violet immediately asking what happened to the both of them. Both of them told her that the Venin took Pavis, which is about 1 hour flight away from Orisha. They also tell her that Naira Voldaren fell on a mission and that, quote, there was nothing left of her or Mala. Violet asks them if the Venin took Corden. Garrick tells her no, that they skipped right over it and hundreds of other miles. They targeted Pavis and stayed there. Bodhi says, quote, it's a good staging point for Drathis. Has to be, end quote. Violet immediately thinks to herself that the Venin are coming for them. Dun, dun, dun.
It is so eerie. Unfortunately, one step that Orisha takes, the Venin are 10 steps ahead of them, sadly. Chapter 51. Violet makes her way to Xaden, who is sitting on the small defensive turret. She crosses the turret, trying to keep her balance so she doesn't drop the plate in her hand. She sits by Xaden, who looks like the picture of control, yet Through the bond, she knows he is feeling otherwise. She realizes how Zayden has been so good at crossing the parapet, and it's because he has been sitting on this very roof since he was a kid. He asks her, how did she know he was up there? And she replies that she felt him through the bond, and she remembers from a letter he wrote her. She also brought him his favorite chocolate cake. So sweet.
Who
Zayden,
doesn't love chocolate cake?
I mean, Zayden and chocolate cake are
Hey.
magically delicious. Violet tries to give him a minute by talking about the weather, and Zayden replies 7 inches. If you know, you know. Violet finally gets the courage to ask him if he was there, and Zayden says yes. Quote, imagine Resson, but 10 times the size, 10 times the number of civilians. End quote. And we also find out that Sigil somehow blocked Terran out, and that both of them have seemed to block them out, which implies that the maiden dragons are fighting. The girls are fighting. Zayden tells her, quote, we're outmatched and spread too fucking thin to be anything but a nuisance to them. We can't communicate fast enough. We aren't effective or any kind of real barrier when we're sending out riots of 3. They can take the rest of poor old meal, take us whenever they want, and I have no clue why they don't. We have no idea how many of them are assembling in Zolia or where the fuck all these wyvern are hatching from. There's no plan except hold the line, and the line isn't holding. End quote. Some serious heavy shit. Even Zayden remarks that they're 50 years too late. We also find out that Mira ordered Zayden off the field after a venom channeled right behind him, missing Sigil by a mere second. That is when Mira called it a loss, despite others dying and their odds. But because Zayden was there and she wasn't going to risk anything happening to her sister. Side note, another Blind Mice podcast moment is Violet asking if Mira told him and Zayden replying, quote, she didn't have to tell me. It was pretty fucking obvious. End quote. Mother of all
Oh
intrinsics.
my
Y'all.
God. What was I still go back to, was I reading this book
No,
like
we
the
were. We
first
were
time?
just like obsessed with him. We're like, he can do no
Oh
wrong. We
my
love you.
God. I was just like, are they going to be together or not? What is happening? I was just so focused on their like
Yes.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Zayden also realizes how Violet has felt since she bonded to Taryn. Quote, like you're just a vulnerable extension of me. Quote, would she apologize for all she's endured? A week later, Vi and Dane continue trying to find the correct way to raise the wards while everyone helps imbue the ward stone. Though they basically translated the whole journal, they begin to feel like the author is just playing one big trick on them. But if you know, you know, because this ends up being kind of true. Dane leaves at Vi's request so he can get some rest while telling her how brilliant Zayden is. I mean, duh. And I think he's a little bit in love with him too. Violet continues to try to uncover what exactly the journal says when finally she figures it out. Quote, the blood of life is actually the breath of life, setting the stone ablaze in an iron flame. They're dragons. End quote. She's a fucking baddie. She's
Just like,
baddie. She's just a fucking, she's that girl.
that's why she's our bestie.
Girl.
Like,
She's that
that, just know we clapping. Like, that's our girl Violet.
Yeah. And she questions whether she should tell Dane, but decides not to, and instead goes to the one person she trusts to do the right thing. Rhiannon, the ultimate girl bestie. She tells Rhi, quote, I know how to raise the wards. I'm just not entirely sure we should. End quote. Chapter 52. Quote, the breath of life of the 6 and the 1 combined, and set the stone ablaze in an iron flame. End quote. The Journal of Warwick of Lucerys, translated by cadets Violet Soringale and Dane Atos. Now, y'all, I know we know, and I know you know, but the 1 combined, does this mean, obviously, Andarna is some kind of breed of all 6 of them? That is why she's kind of iridescent and she reflects so many different colors, because she is the 1 combined of the 6. Now, I wonder how this happened. Breeding just happened? Like they were just some kind of different kind of breed? I don't know. Y'all, I need to know more.
Seriously.
I need more information.
We definitely have to get more information in Onyx Storm. Like now that Andarna's like awake because she was like asleep throughout this whole book, basically. Like now I feel like we're finally going to get the answers about Andarna and her family.
Yeah, and she like has not willingly shared the information, so
No,
she's
that
being
is also
sneaky.
true. But Violet is going to start asking questions. We'll talk
She's a
more
true
about
slayer.
We're going to talk about this soon. I have a whole thing about this.
The squad is in the dining room of Ree's sister's house, Reagan, and Vi knows that Sawyer is sitting with Jasenia, concentrating on signing. So sweet, Sawyer. Such a little cutie. The squad met for the second time at her sister's house this week to help smooth over the tension between the Flyers and the squad outside of Ryerson House, a more neutral ground. They have absorbed Kat's drift into second squad and have tried to be amicable. Vi and Marin are study partners as, again, the ultimate bestie, Ree took on Kat to spare Vi. What a good friend. I know we say it all the time, but for real, sometimes she's like too good to be true. Kind of scares me because this is a we don't trust anyone podcast. So, Jano. Vi almost breaks Ark's cover by asking him if he speaks Old Lucerish, and Vicia picks up asking how he would know since he's supposed to be from Caladir. Thankfully, Ark saves himself. I mean, girl, Vi. Get with it, girl. The reason they're actually meeting at Reagan's house is to tell the Flyers first, before she tells Xaden about how raising the wards mean that the Flyers won't be able to wield. And to no one's surprise, Kat immediately becomes defensive because she's a bitch, remarking how the Griffins are still adjusting and she feels like it's their plan to make them powerless. I mean, if that was the plan, Kat, they would have raised the wards without telling you, you idiot. Sai, as Andarna remarked, quote, "You're doing the right thing," end quote. And Taryn added, quote, "the honorable thing," end quote. Reminds Kat that if they weren't there, the wards would have been up. And, quote, "but you are here. You do matter," end quote. I just know why you love her, Xaden, because I love her too.
Because she just cares about people. Like she knows Kat hates her guts and she still cares about Kat.
Like, she's such a goodie. She is meant to be a leader, basically. Like she doubts herself and she feels inadequate compared to Kat. This is what a ruler does. This is how a ruler rules, you know? Bregan, a Flyer, asks her how long she's giving them, and Vi replies, quote, "I won't lie to Xaden. The moment he's home, I'll have to tell him, but I'll also tell him that I think we should hold off as long as possible to give you a chance to decide if you want to stay, knowing you won't be able to channel," end quote. Finally, girl, some honesty. Girl, be honest with our baby boy. Kat obviously thinks Xaden won't listen to her because she thinks Xaden's incapable of love, that asshole bitch. But Vi.
This is the We Don't Like Cat podcast.
I just don't trust her even more. If I don't trust Ree sometimes, this bitch gets my fucking blood boiling. Anywho's, Vi merely replies, quote, "I think he'll act in the best interest of Tyrandor and want them up as soon as possible, but I can still try," end quote. Imogen reminds them that they can leave and take their chances in Corden, quote, "where you'll have your power, dark wielders," end quote. Vi pulls out 6 conduits that Felix supplied her after she told him the truth. "Felix, you can sit with us, bud." Bregan asks what it is, and Vi says, quote, "the kind of ore we don't use to make the alloy. It's not quite as rare as palladium, but it's 10 times just as explosive," end quote. Marasite, in a way, to help the Flyers not feel powerless. Basically, bombs, power bombs. Vi is dreaming. She's suspended in the dream again with a sage telling her to wield. He wants to see her power. Quote, "prove to me that you are a weapon worth watching, worth retrieving," end quote. A hand pauses at her neck and he tells her, quote, "jealousy sways the tongue of young wielders. The rest turn for power, but you will turn for something much more dangerous, much more volatile. You'll tear down the wards yourself when the time comes. And you won't do it for something as trite as power or as easily statable as greed, but for the most illogical of mortal emotions, love. Or you'll die. You both will," end quote. Pause, pause, pause. Can the Venom see the future? Or can some old writer / Venom with signets keep their powers once they become Venom and have visions and one of them has visions into what will happen? Do they only want Zayden to get to Violet? Or is
Ooh.
Zayden someone more important to the cause? How does the sage have the connection to Violet to infiltrate her dreams? So many questions. I need answers.
This is why I think time travel has to be something in this book. If this is something obviously from the future, obviously there's some form of time travel in this story. There has to be.
I
There has to be.
100% believe it. I 100% believe it. Violet wakes up freaking the fuck out, but Zayden is still asleep next to her, and Taryn just tells her to go back to sleep. And he just goes back to sleep. Now, I don't know about y'all, but like, and granted, listen, poor Zayden, he's been working his ass off, his fine ass off, out there defending the defenseless. He's been like doing his thing, but like, yo, your girl just woke up. Like, she's like, gets out of bed, like, and you don't wake up. I don't know. Like, you must be a pretty deep sleeper, but that's kind of like worrisome when you're in a war. And like, what if somebody shows up in the middle of the night? You're not going to hear that? I don't get it. It's given, and I hate to say this, guys, but it's given Tamlin. It's given Tamlin and Farrah.
Oh, no. Don't even, bringing up Farrah and Tamlin is, I think my eye just starts twitching like.
Almost a week later, mid-December, the squad are facing off claw and tail section for squad exercises. The valley is warmer than the rest of Orisha, just like the Vale would be. Sawyer has lost his position as executive officer in their blend with the Flyers. And Darna argues that she wants to join them, and Taryn gently tries to tell her she might not be able to withstand the flight, and it might hurt any progress she has made with her wing. Ree and Bragan join them. Bragan, who's the new executive officer for the squad, and they tell them that their mission is to find as many as the 30 ruins hidden within the 20 miles. The winners get a weekend pass, no training, no homework, no limits, permission to fly anywhere they want. And of course, who wouldn't want that win? I want that win. Let me go anywhere and everywhere and just let me be free. Zayden and Sigale make it home with Taryn just dipping out to see his baby girl because his baby girl comes first. He's like, I'm out, dragon time. Violet can hardly contain herself too. I mean, this is giving Zayden, their reactions are the same, y'all. Ree notices and lets her go. Zayden tugs her right in front of all of Fourth Wing and tells her he misses her as he breathes her in deeply. Sigh. Garrick shares that Zayden took down a Venom outside of Drathis. Zayden, the Venom killing machine, and of course Vi worries because that's her baby boo, so she worried for him. Zayden tries to find out what Violet has to tell him, but they are leaving for their mission, and of course he obviously reads her like a book. He tells her through the bond, quote, you figured out how to raise awards, end quote. Violet replies, quote, I hate it when you do that. Is my face really that easy to read? End quote. To which he replies, yes. We should go now. How long will it take to raise them? End quote. Blind fucking mice podcast again. I mean, for the 100th time, we are just blind.
We should have made a list of how many times we did not catch things.
Jeez Louise. He asks what she missed, and she responds that they're dragons. The 6 most powerful refers to dragons. He tries to go around and raise them without her, but she just replies he will need Taryn, and she leaves for the mission.
Okay, guys, this is Bella's chapter. Bear with us. Again, Bella, we love you and we miss you, and I miss your commentary, girlfriend. I really do. All right, chapter 53. Quote, the art of imbuing comes naturally to only a handful of signets and automatically only to one, the siphon, end quote. The study on signets by Major Dalton Cisneros. Had to do a little Latin twist on that name, you know.
Cisneros. Yes, Cisneros.
Side note, guys, I am Brazilian. Steph is Mexican. Bella is Brazilian and Polish. Just have to mention that here. So, sorry, Cisneros. I had to
Latin girl podcast.
Yes. The four of them are hiking down a steep, snow-covered ridgeline toward the mouth of a cave that Taryn has spotted for them. Violet is leading the group with Andarna at her side, and Darna is a little pissed because she wanted a big girl mission. Taryn does not like what they are doing and expresses his concern, saying, quote, leaving you on the peak to explore another for a possible energy signature leaves you in unacceptable danger, end quote. Vi asks him from whom? Wyverns? Scarring Taryn enough to tell her he is coming back. Violet laughed at how easy it is to worry Taryn, and Kat gets pissed that her laughter could have caused an avalanche. Violet apologizes and Kat is surprised, to which Violet responds, quote, I can admit when I'm wrong, end quote. Through the bond, Andarna tells Taryn that she is capable of protecting Violet, and Taryn reminds her that she does not breathe fire yet. She says that it would be a risk anyway if she did, because it would potentially melt the mountain. But she still has her teeth and claws if a griffin gets any ideas that involve hurting Violet. I just want to point out Violet's mentioning of Andarna's scales here. It says, quote, I glanced back to see her carefully picking her path, her scales reflecting the snow in an almost silvery sheen in places, end quote. It seems like Andarna's scales not only change randomly, but also camouflage according to her surroundings. I find that an interesting note. Or I wonder, is Andarna like doing it herself willingly? You know what I mean? That's interesting. Kat retorts back to Violet's comment about admitting when she's wrong and saying, quote, are you insinuating that I don't? End quote. Vi asks if she ever thinks she is even wrong and tells her that she is worse than a dragon when it comes to confidence, but Andarna calls it arrogance since she does not possess the necessary skills to claim it as confidence. Violet relays the message from Andarna to Kat about being arrogant, and Sloane agrees with her. Kat then turns to Sloane and says, quote, just because your brother didn't like me doesn't mean you know me, end quote. Vi gets protective and confronts Kat, telling her to direct all that anger and bitterness towards her instead of Sloane. Kat cocks her head and states that it's because she feels guilty for what happened to Liam, and Violet corrects her that it's because Liam wanted her to protect Sloane. Sloane, hearing this, catches up to Vi, telling her that it was wrong of her brother to ask her of such a responsibility, since she is already carrying the burden of protecting Xaden. They get closer to the cave entrance, and it looks bigger than it does from the air, but it's not big enough for a dragon bigger than Andarna's size. Tan remarks, quote, there was a time my kind dwells in every mountain on this range. The cave is undoubtedly part of the network of chambers that runs through this range for a wintering den. This entrance would have been inhospitable to any approach but direct flight to protect the young and the adolescent, end quote. Kat is notified by her griffin and another box was retrieved from her squad. But if they retrieved this one, they would be in the lead. Visa is walking forward and suddenly starts slipping into a hole, but Violet catches her hand in time, tugging her into the cave before she falls through it, which will be an issue when they have to leave later. Then asking if she's all right, to which Kat is, of course, commenting, saying, quote, of course she is. You never seem to have a problem saving her, end quote. How annoying is Kat? Like, you know what? Just push Kat off this cliff. Somebody, please. Anyway.
She's a petty queen. She's a petty queen.
Visa reassures her that she's all right, and Sloane mentions to Kat that her comment is the second reason why she does not like her. The cave is really dark and damp, triggering Violet's traumatic experience underground with Varish, and Andarna reminds her that she killed him, so there is nothing left to fear, but Vi reminds her that the fear is not always logical. The cave is dark and none of them can produce mage lights with lesser magic. None of them can wield signets either, except for Violet. Kat rudely comments that Andarna should be able to produce fire since she is a dragon, but Violet tells her that she's not ready yet. All right, let's go fight her, guys, because she's coming for Andarna. We're coming for her.
Who does this little skanky bitch think she is? I don't know who she thinks he is, but she's about to get it.
Don't be coming for Andarna. You know what, Andarna? Just eat her. Go ahead. We give you the okay. It's fine. Andarna says, quote, remind her that I can sever her head with one bite, end quote. And Violet asks her, what does Taryn always say? And Andarna mutters, quote, we don't eat our allies, end quote. It's okay, Andarna. We are disappointed too. Kat pulls out a small torch from her bag and can't find the fire ruin that Marin made. Vaisa is in shock as she asks, quote, you all trade runes, end quote. And Kat says, quote, and you call yourselves family. Of course we share. Whoever can make it does. Then we all trade so everyone is fully equipped, end quote. Okay, y'all know I don't like Kat, but back to the conversation. This right here is so true that the Flyers just literally run in a logical way. They actually all care about each other. No one falls off the their version of the parapet. They're just in it to live, unlike Bezgayev.
They're a little bit more sane when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's a great point. They're more sane for sure. Violet admits that it's brilliant and asks Kat why didn't she tell them? And Kat replies, quote, you're used to hoarding power, end quote. Touche, Kat. I have to say that I admire that about the pro meals and that it looks like the cadets are learning a lot about their teamwork, which is a good thing. They need fire, so Violet has a great idea and pulls out her conduit in one hand. She starts to tickle her power into the conduit, lighting up the space around them, and then instructing Sloane to take it. Sloane says, quote, I'd rather live, end quote. And Violet responds, quote, if I thought it was going to kill you, I'd hand it to Kat, end quote. Fair. This makes Kat snore, and there's a hint of laugh as well. Sloane hesitantly takes the conduit and steps away from Violet as her power stretches through for Kat to stick the torch into the flow of energy, lighting the torch. Kat is surprised and says, quote, damn, I hate that you're so powerful, end quote. And Violet tells her that it's not the power that makes it possible, but the control she has over it. Okay, Violet, talking from experience. And Kat says, quote, yeah, well, I kind of loathe that too, end quote. Violet says, quote, they paired us because I am supposedly the powerful rider in the squad, but you're better at runes. We might not complement each other, but we complement each other. Get it? With an E instead of an I, end quote. And Kat just looks at her like she has a third arm. Scribe jokes. Unfortunately, no one found it entertaining, but Jasenia might have if she was around. They reach a point in the cave where it opens up about 20 feet, a vast tunnel forking to the left. Vaisa offers to split up, but they all agree not to do that. Yeah, Vaisa, you need to watch some more horror and thriller movies, because that is rule number 1. Stick together. Violet then asks Taryn for help in which direction they should take through the weak connections, and he replies that there is an energy signature in that cave. She suggests that they all take the right tunnel, and if they're wrong, they could just go back and take the left route instead. They all agree and start heading towards the right tunnel. After much silence, Vaisa asks Violet if she thinks she will get 2 signets, and Violet admits that she does not know. Vi asks Andarna through the bond, quote, will I? End quote. And Andarna replies, quote, why are you asking me? Signets manifest according to the person wielding, end quote. Her eyes blink gold, her black scales blending in with the darkness. Once again, another camouflaging moment. Sloane says, quote, second signets only happen when a dragon bonds to a rider in the direct familial line as its previous, but there's an equal chance of it causing madness. And that's why Kruth wasn't punished for bonding with Quinn. She's only the great niece of her previous rider. Her signets more powerful, but not entirely different. End quote. I'm sweating. Okay, because this is also another moment where the Three Blind Mice podcast, because I didn't catch on to this until Violet actually says it.
I literally need a mug that says Mad Woman podcast, Blot Three Blind Mice podcast, We Love Zayden podcast.
Yeah,
we hate
actually, that should
podcast.
be first. That should be first. We Love Zayden podcast. Mm-hmm. Vaisa tells Sloane that she shouldn't know what is discussed amongst the Imperium. Violet is then putting pieces together and thinks to herself, quote, that can't be right. That would mean, end quote. They ask if she's all right, and she assures them that she is fine, despite feeling like she is being swallowed up by a sudden realization that Zayden might have a second signet. Dun, dun, dun. Sloane then spots the open chest they have been looking for, and Kat starts getting to work on weaving a rune to unlock the chest. But Andarna is nervous, so Vi asks her what's wrong, to which she replies, quote, "The scent of others grows stronger," end quote. Violet asks if it's wyvern, but Andarna says, quote, "No, they smell of stolen magic. When you get close enough, this smells like other dragons," end quote. It is assumed that other dragons from the other sections are closing in on them, so Violet tells them to hurry up. Visa then says, quote, "I'm not losing this pass," end quote. She trades the torch from the chest that Kat is holding and reveals that she plans to fly to Navarre to convince her cousins to leave the border if her aunt and uncle won't. Kat respects her bold choice to go back to Navarre, and Vi admires the consideration that Kat has for Visa, but just a bit. They approach the fork in the tunnel, and a low growl vibrates the ground under their feet as a giant orange dragon comes out of the corner, scraping the top of the cave, looking right at them. And Violet screams for Taryn through the bond, and she grabs the nearest person she could, which is Kat, and Visa is knocked against the wall by a claw. Judging by the cracking sound of her bones, she is immediately dead. The orange dragon stares right at Violet as he gets ready to scorch them, and Violet tells Taryn that Solus found them. Lord.
This was, I was shooketh. When I read it, I had forgotten that Solus got away. And then he shows up here in the cave near Orisha? What you doing there?
What you doing there, spy boy?
Chapter 54. Quote, "I'll say one thing for Dragonfire. It kills quickly." End quote. Colonel Kaori's field guide to dragonkind. Kat and Violet are propelled back by a dark figure, and Violet shields Kat's body from Solus. She knows that if Kat is third in line to the throne of Permeate and she dies, Corden will kill Xaden if he survives Violet's death. Kirlair and Salone are swept in next by an unseen force pushing Salone and Violet backwards until they hit Andarna's belly. She wraps her wings around them and tells them to take a breath. Violet shouts for everyone to breathe in and hold it. She takes a deep breath in of sulfur-laced air, and heat is blasted towards them, making it feel like they are in an oven being cooked alive. Violet wonders how Andarna can survive such hot temperatures, and Taryn reminds her that she is fireproof. This reminds me of the scene in Mean Girls when Karen points out her mouse ears and says, "Duh."
Stop. I love that
Mouse,
movie.
duh.
Duh.
And Darna instructs them to keep holding their breath, and after 10 seconds, the blast stops. They all finally take a big breath of fresh air, and Kat is trying to put out Kira's feather that was exposed to the fire with Salone on her way to help also. And Darna then turns around to face Solus, and Violet is like, "Oh, hell's nah, because that's a baby girl." He is also twice her size. She opens the floodgates to Taryn's power, but knows it is a risk to use it where she is because she could hit one of them. And Darna roars and charges for Sola, who, quote, bats her away like she is nothing but a nuisance, end quote. But she says, quote, "I'm fine," end quote, and shakes it off. Taryn yells through the bond, quote, "3 minutes. You will not die today," end quote. The issue isn't if Taryn can make it to them, but if he can make it in time. Since the entrance to the cave they came through is too small for his size, he would need to find another way in, which could delay his arrival. Kat is heard shouting, quote, "Let me go, you're draining my power," end quote, as she is disengaging from Salone's grip. Violet is like, "What the fuck is going on?" as she looks behind her. Taryn tells Vi to go for his other eye after she asks how a dragon can be killed. It's like he knows this bitch is not going to kill a dragon all on her own. She commands Andarna to get out of the way, to which she obeys. Surprisingly, Vi throws her daggers at Sola's mangled face, aiming for the good eye, and on the second attempt, it strikes true. He stumbles back in pain into the forked tunnel, which allows a small space between his head and the wall. Since Kat and Salone are closer, Violet screams at Kat to get Salone out. Salone shouts to Violet, but Kira knows the assignment and gets Salone while Kat is trying to mount her. They barely make it through as Solus tries to claw at them. So now it's only Violet and Andarna alone with Solus. Violet notices pain in her palm from the conduit that is destroyed from the pressure. Poor Andarna says, quote, "I don't have fire," end quote, And Violet reassures her that she has power. She tells her it's about to get very dark. Once there is an opening, she just needs to take it. And Darna refuses to leave without her. Taryn says he is 1 minute away. Violet is thinking of a plan and has an idea to stab whatever is left of the conduit into Solus, but doesn't know how to get it into him until she hears him roar in pain and sees Kat being the cause of their roar with her bow and arrow posed at Solus for another strike. Violet doesn't miss a beat and rushes to strike under Sola's foreleg, causing him to thrash in pain. She then shoves the prongs from the conduit into the soft joint between his gills, while Andarna distracts him by biting him between his neck and shoulder so Violet can wield. Her power rises as she creates more careful distance between her and Solus, who is now swinging his body around from the pain of the conduit that she is conducting her power into. His tail smacks her in the stomach. She sees Andarna still latched onto Solus' neck as he is slamming her against the cave wall. Violet screams, "No!" But someone is pulling her away, and for a moment she thinks it's Liam because of the eyes that are looking down at her. But it's actually Salome. Kat is also by her side, drawing another arrow towards Solus. She hears Kat counting to 100, and Darna finally rips off Solus, taking a chunk of him with her. Okay, baddie. Violet tries to get Andarna, but Salome has a strong grip on her, and she notices that the harder she fights, the weaker she feels. Salome then screams, letting her fall to the ground, but they are at the mouth of the cave, staring into darkness. Kat has a bow ready to strike at Solus if he were to appear. Then a dragon screams, and Violet thinks the worst, but Taryn reassures her that Andarna still lives. Meanwhile, Salome is shooketh as she tells Violet that she drained her and swears that she did not reach for power. She is terrified as she's turning into a venom and asks Violet if her eyes are red. Taryn then says, quote, "She is as Naolan was," end quote, which means she's a siphon. As talons are heard in the cave, Violet explains to Salome that it's her signet manifesting and that she is a siphon. And Darna then walks out with a bloody, poisoned barb on her tail, and Violet realizes that she killed Solus. Taryn says proudly through the bond, quote, "Slayer," end quote. Guys, pause. I just fucking love that he's like, "Slayer." Okay. He's a proud papa right here. It's like, that's
and
my
I
girl.
could just imagine this scene being like the sickest scene ever. Like her just coming out of that cave with her new type of tail. She's like a big girl now, scary as hell.
She's a slayer.
Ay.
While the healer is finishing up with Violet, Xaden comes into the room surprised to see Kat there. But Kat explains that Violet saved her life, so the least she could do is make sure she is being seen by a healer. Kat is in shock, and Kat even more shockingly thanks Violet for saving her life before leaving the room. Violet starts to explain what happened, but Xaden interrupts her, saying that Sigil informed him, and Vi said she didn't want to bother him during his meeting. Xaden's shadows gather on the floor as he says, quote, "Bother me?" end quote. The healer finishes up and tells Violet to be mindful of the lump on the back of her head and of the stitches on her hand before she leaves the room. They stare at each other until Violet says that they can fight about the wards, but she is not taking the blame for fighting her way out of that cave. Xaden is just happy that she is alive and kisses her before saying, quote, "Good, now we can fight. What the fuck were you thinking saving Kat?" end quote. I mean, the sentiment is felt around the fandom. I feel the same way.
Xaden, we agree.
We could have gotten rid of that problem, but I digress.
Mm-hmm.
She explains that even though she is willing to save anyone, she saved Kat because she is third in line for the throne, and if something were to happen to Kat, his life could have been in danger. He is upset that Violet is hesitant in raising the wards because that would make Kat and the other flyers vulnerable since they will be powerless. Now she is willing to endanger her life for hers, but Violet says it's for him, and he yells, quote, "All I want is you," end quote. He tells her that he will deal with the consequences if Kat dies or if the flyers can't channel, and he is trying his best to respect her freedom while keeping her safe, but she makes it hard. Violet then laughs out, quote, "Keep me safe? Is that what you do? I get it all mixed up with just not killing me," end quote. Xaden backs up against the walls, crossing his arms and says, quote, There it is. Are you finally ready to ask me about the deal I made with your mother?
Ooh. Chapter 55. Quote, nothing kills powerful, unshakable love faster than opposing ideologies. End quote. The Journal of Warwick of Lucerys, translated by Cadet Violet Soaringale and Dane Atos. Xaden knew that Violet knew about the deal he made with her mother. She's like, what the fuck? And Xaden comes in with the BS that she should have just asked him. Okay, let's talk about the theory again. If Violet is a truth sayer, let's say, and why she hasn't manifested yet. And this is a prime example as to why she is fighting with the truth. We've posted this on Instagram. She keeps fighting about it with Xaden, and she refuses to ask questions. She refuses to ask for the truth. I believe Xaden knows this, and that's why he keeps pushing her so hard to ask questions, because that is the one way that Violet will let go and finally fully manifest her signet. They bicker back and forth about the same topic halfway through this chapter, but I also understand Violet. She's like, what the fuck do I ask? I don't even know what to ask. Girl, at this point, just ask anything. Stop fighting it. Go ahead. Just talk about what's his favorite color. At this point, I don't know. But then they get into the topic about the scars on his back. Violet is like, what the fuck? She cut into you over and over. Xaden reassures her that the scars have nothing to do with the deal he made with her mom on her behalf. But Xaden then says to her, you want me to apologize for making the deal? Well, sorry, not sorry. I love this man, because at the end of the day, that deal led to them being here right now, led to their fate to be together. And if that's their story, then our boy is more than fine with the choices of the past. But here's a line that stood out to me. Back to the conversation of Violet fighting with the truth, Xaden says, quote, stop being so scared of the answers or waiting for me to give them to you. Demand the truth, end quote. This line right here just tells me everything. Xaden knows she's blocking her second signet by fighting with herself right now. He knows, and he's trying so hard to help her, just like he did with her first signet. He did not tell her what he thought. Like, he in his head knew that Violet was a lightning wielder before she even knew, and he wanted her to figure it out for herself, and he's doing it again.
That theory about her being a truth slayer is true. It would explain why he wants her to ask these questions. It is because he wants her to know the real him and not just what she sees.
Also, before you move on, there is another thing that someone showed me on Instagram today at Karen.bk.boni87 tagged us and said, example, page 299, bottom of the page, he's giving her the dagger, and it says, quote, my head snaps up, but there's no lie in his onyx eyes, end quote. And the reason she sent that is because she was saying that Violet could tell when someone is lying. This was in Fourth Wing, and it just goes to show that, you know, that's Violet deep at her core. She could tell when people are lying, so she could be a truth sayer.
She needs the truth. It is like at her core what she needs. This is why she's been spiraling since Resin. She can't believe that they're still having the same fight months later, and he says that he can because so much has happened to distract her from asking the right questions about them. She is scared of what she will uncover. She calls BS and says, quote, and how am I supposed to fully trust you when battle axes are flying out of armors left and right? End quote. He looks at her confused as she explains it's an analogy she used with Imogen. He says that he can work with this analogy. Xaden asks, quote, what's in your armor right now? End quote. And Vi replies, quote, uniforms, boots, flight leathers, end quote. He then asks her, quote, how many uniforms and which pair of boots? End quote. His shadows move from under the bed towards the armor doors as he asks, quote, do you actually know what's in there? Or do you trust that I haven't moved your belongings and everything where you left it? End quote. She makes a comment about it being an analogy, and she is aware of where everything is in the armor because she opens it every day. He asks about the blanket his mother made him that is on the top shelf as his shadows reach for it. She says she doesn't go snooping, and he says, quote, because you trust me, end quote. And she replies, quote, analogy, end quote. He then asks her to humor him and ask the questions. She says, quote, fine. Do you happen to have a battle, end quote. She is cut off by the dagger that surges toward her face inches from her chin. Violet is like, what the fuck? And he asks if she thinks he is going to hurt her, and she says that she is going to hurt him if he doesn't get away from her. He asks her, quote, would I ever let this knife hurt you? End quote. And he leans into her space and she replies, quote, of course not, end quote. She grabs the hilt of the dagger as Zayden's shadows bring it closer to his throat and throws it on the desk. He then flashes her a smile and says, quote, hey, Violence, there's a knife in the armoire. All you had to do was ask. And even if you weren't aware it was coming, you know that I'd never let it hurt you. I'm not the one you don't trust, end quote. He calls her smart and says, quote, you knew about the deal. Maybe the question you need to be asking is why you didn't confront me about it, end quote.
Hold on. When he says, I'm not the one you don't trust, does he mean that she doesn't trust herself?
100%.
Oh, he knows, dude. He fucking knows. Smart man. Love him.
He's a smart man. Violet finally admits to him it's because she loves him, and she was afraid that the reason why he kept her alive was because he was interested in her and not because of the deal he made with her mother, and because it would be horrifying to think that he fell in love with her because of her mother. She says, quote, I love you so fucking much that I ignored every warning signal last year, and now half the time I don't know which side of that line I'm standing on because I'm too busy looking at you to watch my own feet, end quote. He says, quote, because you don't want to know where your feet are, end quote. Someone knocks on the door and he tells them to fuck off before remembering that the room is soundproof. She then says, quote, let's put your theory to test. You want me to demand the truth, to ask something real, end quote. And he says, quote, please do, end quote. Oh, he's gonna regret that one. Violet then asks him, quote, what is your second signet? End quote. He is in complete shock, shooketh, dead, deceased. What the fuck? He's reeling. He's spinning out of control. And she whispers to him that she knows he has one because Sigil bonded with him, who is a direct descendant of her previous rider, which can either manifest a second signet or cause madness. And he seems normal, so a second signet is likely on the table. Oof. Seeing his reaction makes her think, quote, so much for asking, end quote. The pounding on the door gets louder and Brennan is heard screaming that there is an emergency. Zayden then looks at her and says that wyverns have been spotted flying from Pavis towards the cliffs and it's time to raise the wards before they get to the gates. End scene.
Wow. And you guys know we never see Zayden shocked, okay?
Ever. He was shook. He did. First of all,
ever.
Was she not thinking this? Was her intention not to ask this? Was it just the height of the moment that it just came out that he didn't even expect it?
Probably, because again, she refuses to ask. I don't know, like throughout this whole book, I feel like she was so afraid to find the truth in things. Like for some reason, she always avoided asking questions, no matter what it was. So
that's crazy. That's some crazy ass shit.
The only time I remember her asking questions is the random ask questions when they first started dating is, what is your favorite food? What is this? Like, are you an only child? Like things like that. So anyway, well, we have a nice way to start the next episode. That's for sure.
Lord.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. 14 more days, guys. We hope you enjoyed our podcast and had fun. And we will be posting a new episode every Tuesday.
Well, happy waiting, because those 14 days are going to be the longest 14 days of my life. Can't wait to join our favorite world again. We are just your local trio of best friends. We miss you, Bella, so much. It's been 2 episodes and I cannot handle it. Come back. I need you to do all the sexy scenes again. We're just here enjoying each other's company and talking about what we love the most. Books and Zayden, Rebecca Yarros, Rhysand, Rowan, Kingfisher, you know.
We love Kingfisher, yep.
Anyways, all the shadow daddies. All of the shadow daddies. This podcast is just so much fun to make when you have the best girls doing it with you. Remember to follow us on @EnchantedCirclePod on Insta and TikTok, and follow/subscribe to our podcast channel on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or YouTube. Until next time on the Enchanted Circle Pod.